No, that's not.
We're recording.
Great, okay. We're going to call to order the examining board of plumbers on February 5th, 2024. First meeting in a while. We'll go over the minutes from the last meeting and see if anybody wants to have a motion to accept those into the record. Last time we met was 11/7/22. Everybody was present. We discussed the new licensing testing procedures. We had just lost our agreement with Prometrics and discussed that we're going to be using Pearson View, who will issue a nationally standardized plumbing exam written by the ICC. Everybody was happy with that. It seems to have been working well. We've not had a lot of applications, but they are going to the testing center, and the exam is similar to the one that Prometrics offered, so it is a good test of knowledge. We also distributed ID badges to everybody. Hopefully those got you in the building.
Let the record reflect that I did properly use mine today, okay?
Thank you.
I don't know if did I get one?
If not, we can get you.
Oh, we took the pictures and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get.
Okay, we'll stop on the way out,
All right,
right back here down the hallway, and you get yours.
okay.
You got yours, Michael?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. So that was the minutes from 11/7/22. If anybody wants to make a motion to accept these into the record,
I'll move, so
second anyone?
Second.
All right, those are accepted into the record. The reason we're meeting today is we have two applications for master plumber licenses. The first I have distributed to each of you. It is a gentleman from downstate who's going to be moving. He wrote us a nice letter, said that he's going to be moving to Oneonta or Antigo. Relocate his family up there. Yeah, Otigo. And he has multiple licenses throughout the Long Island area. And he's taken the test and passed the exam, which we have his photograph test results saying that he passed. But he was kind enough to include the requirements for the plumbing exam and the licensing program in here. And it says in here that along with your completed application and passing testing scores, you have to show that the numbers of required work have been submitted, which is 5 years as an experienced plumber, apprentice, or equivalent. And he has failed to do that. And I think we explained to him on the phone that although you've been doing this for 26 years and you've done multi-million-dollar jobs, you must have started somewhere and you must have worked for somebody, even if it was 25 years ago. Can you just get those records and show us that you have the 5 years of experience? And he felt that my explanation or Pat's opinion wasn't valid, so I told him, to be fair to you, sir, we will bring this in front of the board and have them weigh in on it. And if there's, any chance that somebody's willing to waive the requirements and accept your licensing in Suffolk County and Huntington, Long Island as a substitute, we'll have that decided by the board rather than just one member of the building and code department. So you each have a copy of Joseph No's application. You've all had a chance to look at his certifications of competency and licenses throughout Long Island. And
so what is the objection? I don't grasp what the objection is.
the requirements for the licensing program, according to the city's code, the city's charter says that you have to show 5 years of experience as an apprentice plumber. That is normally documentation by an employer on a company letterhead, signed by an officer of the company with that signature notarized. You can also show W-2 statements or completion of an apprenticeship program.
Right, I mean, they give you a certificate when you complete your apprenticeship. So
Yeah,
all
or
you
if
have
you
to do is
didn't,
just go get it. I mean, I have mine, I'm sure you have yours.
or if you didn't do an apprenticeship program, maybe you just
But has
worked
been
for somebody.
confronted with that, this is what the flaw is in his application?
Yeah,
Yes.
And
I
what
had
his
that.
response?
he said, I would like you to look at my certifications in other municipalities, consider my 26 years of owning my own business, and ask the board whether or not they will accept these documents as a substitute for what's traditionally accepted as proof of
Does
experience.
anybody think that's a flaw in the application process? In other words, let's assume a guy gets out of high school, goes to work for himself, does good work for 25 years. I don't know whether that's something we should consider as being,
I think it's a skilled trade. I don't think it's likely that you would have graduated high school and just dove into the trade and learned what you needed to know. And said, by doing it myself and learning from my mistakes, I'm as competent as somebody who is trained.
it doesn't appear as though that would be an insurmountable hurdle, would it, to comply with what we've requested?
No, no, and,
All you gotta have is W-2s,
right,
right?
True.
From a plumbing and heating company.
Right. Yeah. W-2s, even a company, stating how many hours you worked for them over a period of time, you could say I had
Why don't we just
1,500 hours
issue a letter
this
to them
year.
that these are the objections, and if you don't comply with them,
it's no problem, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you. But as of right now, I don't think he meets.
Yeah.
The standards,
Okay.
in my opinion.
I'm going along with that.
Okay.
You guys have already voiced. your
Yeah, well, I
opinion on
mean,
it,
that's,
right?
but
Pat?
again, that's, we want to separate opinion from a fair vote.
Sure.
So, if anybody,
as an aside, I know we've talked about this a lot, but that $50 application fee. It should be more.
that's pretty low. That's true.
It is, I mean, it's,
All right, well, we'll come back around to that, but,
I just pointed that out. We took that up years ago and nobody ever said anything about it, but
okay. So all in favor of accepting the application by Mr. Nose for a master plumber's license, say aye. Anybody object?
the objections will be forthcoming in the letter.
Okay, but you're authorizing me to write the letter
Yes.
to him?
Yeah,
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's unanimous, and John?
Yeah.
Objected, it's unanimously objected to, and we will send a letter to Mr. Nose, letting him know that we really can't process this without proof of experience. If he can provide that, then we'll certainly review this again. I think he's, smart, he passed the test, he did well, but we just don't have the documentation we need, which wouldn't be fair to all the other applicants who did provide that documentation.
yeah, and that's exactly where I stand too, I've objected, I think every single time someone hasn't, since I've been on the board. When someone hasn't been able to show that they've gone through a 5-year apprenticeship program, so, I don't wanna start picking and choosing.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
just to be fair and keep
To
it.
be fair, everyone else has said no to,
Okay. Okay, so that one, we can set that aside. The next individual has also been in the office multiple times applying for a license as a master plumber. This one's a little tricky because he did show us, here, I've got one for each of you. He did show us, W-2s. And he does have a letter, from an employer. What Pat did was he took the W-2s and wrote down the dollar amounts that he earned each year. So we're left with a little bit of math to do, but if you take a look at his application, and I'll explain to you how I worked through the math to turn dollars into hours.
Before we get there, just out of curiosity, why Binghamton? Why are all these guys coming into Binghamton? What's going on?
Yeah, well, this guy from Otigo, I asked him the same question. I said, why do you need the Binghamton
Jonathan
license? You can
Diaz,
certainly work
that's
in,
thing.
Vestal and
That's just,
Endicott and everywhere from
you
here
can
to
look at
Otigo.
that.
You don't
This
is
really
the
need a
money
license
they-
for
Right.
Binghamton. He's just trying to get as many licenses upstate as he can, and I don't think this is gonna cause his business to go bust if we don't give. it to him.
That's kind of the way I was looking at it too.
Right.
Like you worked a few hours every year.
Right,
I mean, a year for us is 1,600 hours.
Right, that's a good
Regular
point, John.
year
I'm
is
glad
like
you mentioned- I was-
2,000 hours.
About
I would-
2,000 hours is the way I used to always
Yeah, right.
think of it, yeah.
But even
for a
it's-
year.
Takes us 1,600 to get a
Yeah.
credited year
Okay,
okay,
for or retirement.
Yeah, you know how I don't live with it.
Like, wonder why I can't work a full year of work. Well, that year he might have 20.
What did he submit in support of this argument?
Oh, so he has W-2s. That's where we got these dollar amounts. So in 2014, we know he earned $10,955. We know he didn't do any work in 2015. I don't know why Pat put that in there, but we know he earned $480 in 2015. Couple of years he didn't work.
What's Patrick got to say about it?
Well, he wasn't really sure, how to break this down. Like you said, 1,600 hours is a year. Pat, was of the mindset that, maybe you're working 40 hours, 40 weeks out of the year, not a full 52. That's maybe common in the trade. We're just trying to break it down. So I think what we need to agree on is, two things. This gentleman explained to us that a lot of these incomes are underreported because he did a lot of under the table work, and we said, unfortunately, that's not gonna count.
Right,
And then he said, well, a lot of these incomes are underreported because I wasn't getting paid, my fair share. I was making, $20 an hour. And even if that's true, when we use those calculations to determine how many hours he worked that year, and then used a standard work year of 1,600 hours, it just doesn't come up to 5 years worth of work.
not only that, I mean, if, excuse me, if you keep looking, I mean, it's like 10 years, this guy has barely worked,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's,
Worked for a lot of different people.
Well, so since he came here, right, he's done a half year with Joe Lito, and then he did a half year with Ohanahi. And that's probably the most valid, experience that he has.
yeah,
So, and he did give us, documentation, as far as his, pay stubs from those two companies. So we have. Actually, we don't really have it through Lido, but we have it from Ohanahi. So Ohanahi uses a payroll company. It was pretty easy to get that, those paychecks from them. Yeah, Lido didn't actually submit anything on a letterhead, so we don't have.
What is
that.
the calculation today?
Well, what I had, look, if we were as generous as possible and said, it's true, you've been getting ripped off all your life and you're making $20 an hour. At $20 an hour, assuming a 1,400 hour year, saying that you work 35 hours a week for 40 weeks.
Yep.
Even there, he comes up with 4.5 years. And if anybody says that's crazy, Chris, there's no way he's paying this kid $20 an hour. And there's no way he's working 35-hour work weeks. And there's no way he's only working 40 weeks out of the year. Then it goes down from 4.5 years. In fact, I still assumed a 35-hour work week and $20 an hour. But I said, if you're working for 52 weeks a year, now if we look at Lido and Ohanahi, he has worked for 46 weeks this year in 2023. So we know he works more than 40 weeks a year, right? But even saying, 35 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, even there, he comes up with 3.5 years of experience. So, I don't know if I'm being fair to him, but when I was at my most generous assumption possible, at $20 an hour, a 40-week year, he's only at 4.5
still
years.
comes up short.
Yeah. So I think he's actually getting on board now. I mean, he did a little bit of work for Pekoski, back in 2020.
They stayed pretty busy though, like that doesn't make any sense to me that he's at that. company.
Especially back then, they
Yeah.
had the fire protection and the,
Absolutely, I'm
All
saying
right,
to
and
myself,
so let me just ask you guys,
How would you
even if he was
Yeah.
non-union, is there any way he's making $20 an hour? Is that,
how do you, I don't know how
No,
you live
I
on it.
mean,
does
know
anybody
he's
pay
a-
that?
we're
No,
not.
would
We're not.
Ohanahi or Pekoski or anybody pay that rate?
What,
No,
Lido maybe?
It'd be more. Than that.
Would have to
It'd be like 25, 26 probably.
Yeah.
You
It'd be
know,
$20 an hour maybe as a first year.
first year,
apprentice.
exactly right,
I
right.
think that's what our first year apprentices make.
Yeah, like if I get a kid that comes off the street and he wants to just work, it's about where you're gonna start. 20.
Yeah,
And are you having him really apprentice or is he just driving materials from work site to work site?
well, probably a little both,
Little bit.
but you.
Which is the
Moving
concern because
materials
that's not,
is a good
that's not
thing
plumbing
because you learn,
experience.
you learn the materials.
Right.
So that's like our first year.
Okay.
And I don't wanna give, but an example is our first year apprentices will handle materials. They might be core drilling holes a whole year.
Right.
It just depends on what's available and what needs to be done.
Okay.
It could be
And-
just cleaning.
And what kind of first year apprentice? In other words,
Yeah,
did you
what
grow up
they-
around the business where
yeah.
you know the trade a little
Or
bit?
you catch on. real quick.
Right.
Well, that's, you're saying for the union, you need 1,600 hours to be considered 1 year of service. We're being generous. We're saying this guy's a first year apprentice for the last
4.5 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 9 years as a first year apprentice. And we're also assuming that, he's doing a 35-hour work week for only 40 weeks out of the year. That only puts him at 4.5. So even at our most generous assumption possible, he's not hitting the 5-year mark. I just want to be clear to him when we give him his feedback that he has his expectations set for how much more work he needs to do. So, maybe we should qualify for ourselves how many hours a year we would accept. Would we accept 1,400? That's 35 hours a week for 40 weeks a year. Does that seem reasonable? Is that too low and too generous? If the union is saying 1,600, is that a standard that we could use?
I'm okay with that.
Because
I mean, this
Yeah,
5-year,
because
this 5-year
we don't-
requirement.
We
is
don't
really-
have a hour.
his rate here is
Environment.
$25 an hour from Mahoney, so we know he's not making $20 an hour.
Well, like, for example, the 5-year apprenticeship requirement, I mean, that's a standard set by the unions.
Yeah.
That's
Just
why I like that.
prevailing wage is set by. the union,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
So,
And we see here, he's up to $30 an hour by the end of 2023 with a honey. So even
That-
$20 an hour is being ridiculously generous.
that's right.
If we start using 30 and 1,600, he's closer to like 3.5 years of experience.
I think he needs to have a couple more years of experience.
I think so too. Plus, I say to myself, not that it's my business, but I'm saying to myself, what does he need this license for? Is he, you've been kind of bouncing around everywhere.
He actually came to town with another guy. He's from downstate. He's from Long Island or the Bronx or Brooklyn.
Okay.
He came to town with another guy who's a GC. They were buddies. He wanted to use this guy as his plumber. We said, you don't really qualify to pull a permit because you're not a master plumber. And he said, I've been plumbing all my life. What's it take to become a master up here? So that's where he's coming from. He's relocated up here with a buddy who's a GC. He's looking to be his go-to plumber for all the jobs this guy picks up. And that's why he's here.
Who's the
And
guy?
apparently
Did
he's
you
not.
pull?
Guy
you
he's
ask-
working with?
Yeah.
It's like Colonel something or other. I don't
Colonel
know his name.
Sanders?
Yeah, he wasn't.
I don't, that's
They're-
not a good, I shouldn't say.
There, I don't even know that he's getting a lot of work up here. The colonel may have left, but this guy stayed behind and now here he is. And, he's looking to continue this. So,
He'd be much better off just, getting hooked up with a company and putting some more time in and getting his experience, in my opinion.
What's it take once you have a master plumbing license to pull a permit? in the city of
that's all. Once you become a master plumber, you're able to. pull
You don't
permits.
have to have a company,
No, because a lot of guys can just work on their own. Look at Brian Kelly.
insurance,
Right.
you don't
know,
need
look at Tom
insurance or
Kelly.
anything else.
Well, they do, so you would have to, that's workers' compensation for it. They would have to prove if they had employees that if they have a payroll, that their employers have workers' comp and disability. If it's just Brian Kelly by himself in a van with a bunch of stuff, he can get an exemption from the workers' compensation insurance because he's not insuring anybody. He takes on his own liability.
Well, how about for like when you're working in somebody's house and you burn it down?
Yeah, liability insurance, right.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of guys can show that. They give us the accord statement saying,
Right.
look, I'm.
Yeah,
insured
just
for-"
curious, that's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, no, we do that. So the two things that we have to verify for a permit is that you're licensed. You've already shown to be experienced and that you are insured both for liability and workers' compensation and disability. So that's, yeah, all right. Well, I think, you know, we can put this together to him, to let him know that we're gonna be looking at 1,600 hours a year. If you want to show us, you know, dollar amounts, we're gonna be, you know, we can assume $20 for the first few years, but we know in 2023, you were making anywhere from 25 to 30 for a Hanedy, so.
Can you put years together?
Yeah,
For like, can you put 2 years together for 1 year experience?
that's all we're looking for in the
Yeah.
end. Look, if you worked a half a year for 10 years, in
You
the
got
end,
5 years
you got 5 years of
Okay.
experience. It took you
Yep.
10 years to get it.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same.
Yeah, no, I don't think it needs to be consecutive days.
Right.
I think, you know, like we said, with, you know, with some trades, there's a downtime.
Yeah,
Maybe you get not much work in January, February. You know, we're not saying it's a perfect, you know, every
Right.
day you're busy.
Yeah.
but- All right, so anybody in favor of approving Jonathan Diaz's application to be a master plumber?
No,
All opposed?
yes,
Opposed, unanimously opposed to Jonathan Diaz. So we will write them nice correspondence and explain to these two applicants that they have a lot of the qualifications on their application, but not everything that we need to be fair to all the other people who took the time to submit the evidence that we require to grant the license.
absolutely, and it's not, and it's also, you know, being consistent and fair to people that did, you know, meet all these requirements too.
Right,
It's a very slippery slope today, though. If you notice how, you know, dentists are starting to do plastic surgery. And, you know, it's not an easy line to draw, where you reach that level to engage in that type of
yeah,
conduct.
yeah, no, I agree, Fred, so,
And the legislatures are pushing to make everybody able to do it.
I think we're pretty lenient. We don't have licensing programs for a lot of trades, just plumbers and electricians that. Both of them could create catastrophic events for people who are dealing with somebody who's not experienced. And with, you know, electric, you could certainly damage someone's property and possibly impact someone's, you know, health or safety. In a
Including-
limited scope. With plumbing, I think it's much broader. I think it's a little
yeah,
more.
you can affect your
uh,
neighbor.
Oh,
You could
yeah.
contaminate the city's water supply, right? You could really take down like a whole city. if
Yeah.
you're
Oh,
not-
you kidding me?
So
Absolutely.
with
Blink
that
of
in
an eye.
mind, I take this very seriously. I know that if we have an electrical violation, it's handled as such. But when we have non-compliance with plumbing code, it's handled as a misdemeanor because it's seen as a greater risk to the entire community than an electrical deficiency.
That's
So
the
this
one
is
thing
pretty
we got
important stuff.
in this town is water.
Yeah,
That could be our saving grace. A lot of spots are gonna have water in 10 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
People left New York because of the taxes, they'll be back for the water.
Absolutely.
my
they will
words.
be.
well,
They'll be coming back.
unless somebody builds a pipeline and takes our water and delivers it up
Yeah.
Southern
Yeah,
California.
that's what they'll do.
It's got long ways to there.
We do it with oil. We
They'll
can
be,
do it.
they'll be back.
Yeah.
They can steal your water.
Hey, they take water to the Middle East, you know, in large tankers. I mean, that's how desperate people are for water.
Yeah, well, that's the way it's going, so. Buy as much water rights as you can. All right, so with that, I'll make a motion to conclude today's meeting.
I'll second it.
Second that, adjourned. All right, hate to bring you guys in for two no's, but like I said,
Well,
to be fair to these
Oh, sorry.
individuals,